A very good morning, class. As promised, I'm back with the second lecture on Deconstruction, Derrida, and Difference. The theory of deconstruction almost invaded the space of understanding of language, literature, philosophy, the moment Derrida introduced it to the world. Now, what exactly is the theory of deconstruction? It is an approach to understand the relationship between text and meaning. Now, let us connect the dots here first. If you remember in the previous lecture, I told you in detail about Ferdinand de Saussure and the theory of structuralism, where he offered a systematic relationship between various components of language, and he clearly divided them into lang and parole, right? Which means the fixed and the changeable relationship between language. Now, Saussure mentioned that every meaning is fixed. He said that there is a signifier and there is a signifier. There is an object-meaning relationship to every word. Now, Derrida gave a kind of an antithesis, which he clearly says is not an antithesis. It has nothing to do with structuralism, and he should definitely not be branded as a post or as an anti-structuralist, because his theory is not against structuralism, rather it is a step forward. So this approach is to understand, again, the purpose is the same as Saussure. It is to understand the relationship between text and meaning. Now, this theory has delivered various interpretations. It is a kind of a thesis in itself, and it is a kind of an antithesis of many theories available prior to this theory. Now, it kind of appears complex. And my favorite teacher, when he taught this in our classrooms, he said that there's a very popular term in Punjabi for Punjabi students, for North Indian students. He says, Derrida to Derrida. And he made it a point that we did not suffer from that. For those who do not understand Punjabi, it means that the world is threatened by Derrida. No, it is not. Rather, the world has understood so many theories, so many complications, and has helped to unwind or to understand those things with much deeper understanding. So this theory of deconstruction has helped us understand language to be irreducibly complex, unstable, and something which is impossible to determine. The purpose of theories is to make things comprehensible. But this particular theory makes things complex. Why? Because the man who brought the theory is equally complex. Let's learn about him a little. That's Derrida for us. Derrida, the philosopher. But he was not only a philosopher. The first impression that he gained from the outside world was that he found himself to be an outsider. Derrida was born in Algeria to a Jewish family and suffered intensely the experience of being an outsider. While in Algeria, he undertook a study of several major philosophers including Soren Kierkegaard and Martin Heidegger. He then studied at various prestigious institutions in Paris and eventually became the teacher of philosophy. So, from being an outsider in his own family, he eventually went on to become a teacher and a philosopher. He worked at Harvard in 1975 and then began teaching at Yale. And then this philosopher became the teacher. He established a reputation in France during the 1960s, a reputation which crossed to the United States in the 1970s. Now, Derrida's transatlantic influence can be traced to an important seminar held at the Johns Hopkins University in 1966. And no prizes for guessing that it was his most phenomenal essay, Structure, Sign at Play in the Discourse of Human Sciences, delivered at Johns Hopkins University, where there were other paper presenters like Roland Barthes, Jacques Lacan, and Lucien Goldman. So he, from an outsider, the journey moved on to being a philosopher, a teacher, and then a researcher who presented a paper and declared to the world that he is a non-post structuralist. He did not believe in the fixed structure of language. And with this phenomenal paper, Structure, Sign, and Play, he just led fireworks throughout the world. Yeah, the works. The following year, in 1967, marked Derrida's explosive entry, and that is why I have used the word the works. It was more like a firework. This man was on fire. The moment he delivered this paper, Structure, Sign, and Play in Human Sciences, he was established as a milestone in the history of philosophy, science, and literature. In the following year, he made an explosive entry onto the international stage of literary and cultural theory with the publication of his first three books. Now, all three books are, of course, in French, but they are available to us in translation as Of Grammatology, Speech and Phenomena, and Writing and Difference. Later on, he published Dissemination and Margins of Philosophy, and a few other books too. These are for your reference. You must understand that these three books of grammatology, speech and phenomena, writing and difference, they were his immediate produce after the phenomenal paper presentation. And these texts established him as a stalwart in the literary and philosophical space. Now, what did these books do? What was he discussing? He discussed that the unstable nature of language or the multiplicity of meanings available in language or moving away from the center of the language, it gave a new relevant study space in the fields of law, literature, feminism, linguistics, psychoanalysis, and of course, philosophy. The word that he took is a translation of the word destruction, a concept given by Martin Heidegger, right? Where he says that every concept of the word can be further divided into many. Now, the most fundamental project of deconstruction is to display the operations of logocentrism in any text. I'll repeat, the most fundamental or the most primary work of deconstruction is to understand and bring out the operations of logocentrism. Now, what exactly is logocentrism? Let's understand that. Logocentrism is a term coined by the German philosopher Ludwig Claes in the early 1900s. It refers to the tradition of Western science and philosophy that regards words and language as a fundamental expression of reality. It is also characterized by Derrida as metaphysics of presence. Now, understand that historically and etymologically, this term refers to the system of thought which is founded on the stability and authority of the logos, 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 the divine word. The various meanings accumulated by this word in the Hebrew language, ancient pagan and early Christian words are complex. The scholar Dodd explains logos is both the thought and the word, and the two are inseparable. Logos is the word as determined by and conveying a meaning. Now, if I could give it to you in layman terms, it is language as offered by God Himself. And every single word comes with a meaning offered by God Himself. Now, Derrida explains that he observes that uh, the Hebrew equivalent of logos has a meaning which means to speak. It is God's own word. In the Gospel of John, the plural logoi refers to the words spoken by Jesus or others, but the singular logos signifies the whole of what Jesus said. His message as both revelation and command. The life of Jesus is Logos incarnate, and events in his life are signs of eternal realities. Now, Indian students could understand it in terms of Bhagavad Gita. Now, the entire Bhagavad Gita is a discourse between Lord Krishna and Arjuna. And whatever the Lord speaks comes to us as Bhagavanavach. Comes to us as Bhagavanavach. Something that is given to us by Lord Himself. And we believe it to be the eternal truth. That is Logos. Logos could be understood as Bhagavanavach. The Lord Himself speaking to the lesser mortals and delivering meaning to language, to understanding of life, to the basics of human existence. And since it is delivered by the Lord Himself, it is the divine word, how can it be challenged? But Derrida did that. He challenged that language is not logocentric. It is something that is human centric. A further sense of logos uh, is found in the fourth gospel, which is the word of God, his revelation to man. It denotes the eternal truth revealed to men by God. Hence, logos is not simply an uttered word, it is truth itself, right? Just as the way I said, "Oh, Bhagwano vacha hai," right? You cannot question it, you cannot challenge it. But Derrida did that. So logos is the transcendent design of the universe and its immanent meaning. So every word, every single word offered to us has a meaning, and the meaning comes from the divine world itself. And it holds together the orders of language and reality and their relationship between the signifier and the signified. That is exactly what structuralism offers to us. Here, Derrida challenges logocentrism. He says there is nothing that holds stable meaning. What happens when the logocentric approach or the logocentric way of understanding is taken away? Suddenly, order destabilizes. There is nothing to hold together the orders of language and reality. Suddenly, there is not only meaning, but there is metaphor to a word too. There is endless substitution of one signifier for another. Now, understand that the varieties of appearances of logocentrism, right? There is no fixed meaning. Every Lord has offered one meaning, and every human has understood it in a different way. So when you understand it in your own way, you lose connection between the arbitrary and the conventional nature of sign. Now what happened? Suddenly, hell broke loose. Not only language, literature, and philosophy, it was something that questioned religion too. So it challenged the metaphysics of present. It challenged something that was present for a very long period of time. And Derrida coined the term difference. Now look at the spellings. It is Difference. It is a French word. Now, we say Derrida coined the term difference, but it is not exactly coining. The word is already available to us in French literature, which means that language is, the meaning of language is based on difference, which is a collective understanding of two words put together, differ and differ. That every meaning in language is different and delayed. What you understand as a meaning now, years later, the meaning will change depending upon your understanding of life. Now, with this, he challenged the Western metaphysical world, uh, or the challenge the established knowledge that was available to us through Plato and Aristotle. He exposed the violent hierarchy of oppositions and attempts to reverse, especially the binary of speech and writing. See, understand, we have always understood language, as I told you in the previous lecture, with binary oppositions or with oppositions, day and night, good and bad, happy and sad, master and slave, men and women, speech and writing. And each comes with a violent hierarchy where one is supposed to have a more prominent role than the other. Now, somehow, Derrida says that this is not how it should be, especially between speech and writing. Says we have based our understanding through speech. Again, Agvanovach, uh, the logos offered to us. And writing has somehow not been given its due credit. So let us reverse the order. Let us give more credit to writing, or let them be of equal significance. Men and women, master and slave, day and night, bright and dull, speech and writing. Each combination of binaries should be given equal significance. They should not be based on a violent hierarchy that they offer in speech. And let us have our own different and delayed understanding of words. Now, This particular theory is an observation that the meaning of words come from synchrony with other words within language and diachrony between contemporary and historical definitions of the word, change in the meaning of words over time. It considers development or evolution of language. Now, if I could give you an example, look at the word hell. Right? If the logos tells us that hell is something that stands in opposition to heaven, all good deeds on planet Earth take you to heaven in the afterlife, and if you've not been good, it takes you to hell. Eventually, over the period of time, it has changed. Look at the way the present generation uses the word hell. It is so often used that I live in a hellish condition. My life is hell. Now, we're definitely not talking about an afterlife. So, we have a certain diachrony. Right? We are not using the synchrony of the word, we are rather using the diachrony of the word. You are understanding it as something which changes its meaning over the period of time. It is more like an etymological fallacy. It is a genetic fallacy that holds that the present day meaning of a word or a phrase should necessarily be similar to its historical meaning, which is not possible. It becomes possible when a word has changed its meaning over time. For example, the word decimation. Now, the word originally meant reduction by 1/10, but now we understand decimation as something which causes great reduction. The word kid, originally it meant the offspring of a goat, but now we use the word for our own children. Look at the word gay. Originally, the word meant elation, right? Happiness, somebody who was happy. But in the present context, we have started using it in terms of homosexuality. Similar is house. Now, the word house derives its meaning through its function. It could be a mansion, it could be a shed, it could be a hotel, it could be a building. So each one of us will decipher the meaning of house in our own way. So the meaning differs and differs for each one of us. There can be no fixed meaning. There can be no logocentric meaning to a word. Now, how exactly do you use it when you are applying it on a text? Right? So, when you are reading a text and you have to apply deconstruction to it, what you do to it is that you find and overturn the oppositions inside the text. Try to produce a structural sense. The oppositions cannot be suspended once and for all. For example, if you take the word chalk, right? Now, it could lead to an unending analysis. Now, you could understand chalk as something that is used for writing. But if you want to deliberate more on that, there is a necessity of an unending analysis. Now, the moment you say chalk, comes into picture a blackboard. A blackboard where something is being written. By whom? A teacher. A teacher who's writing a lesson. For whom? For a number of students. Where are those students? They are sitting in a classroom. Now, the classroom could be in a school, in a college, in a village, in a city. So, from a piece of chalk, you move to the blackboard, to the teacher, to the students, to the village, the country, the classroom. There could be an unending analysis. So, there cannot be a fixated meaning. But you have to make sure that the explicit decisions that you make and the arbitrary violence intrinsic to all texts is brought out. Now, reinstate language within the connections of various terms that have conventionally dominated Western thought. So what you do is when you start reading text, you have to see, are there any logos in them? Are there any dominating Western thought patterns in it? If yes, you need to bring them out to the world. You need to show them to the world and make sure that the internal violence that they offer through the hierarchy is considerably reduced. You have to systematically question the founding concepts of entire history of philosophy to deconstitute them. Converse all concepts while recognizing their limits. Now, this could be another option, something that Strauss took up, that you can bring out all the converse of all concepts, but you can recognize your limits as well. Now, what happened? Right? The moment he delivered this, the moment he gave the deliberations of the theory, his authority in the Western world increased, and beyond, of course. People understood that this could be a way of understanding text. Why is it so important to always affix a meaning? Why cannot we deconstruct and find our own meanings? Right? Which could also mean no meaning at all, which is Friedrich Nietzsche's theory of nihilism. It is not enough to expose and deconstruct the ways of oppositions and then stop a nihilistic position. No, you can't do that. Every word has a meaning, has a multiplicity of meaning, has a hierarchy of meaning. But let us not bring it to a point where it has no meaning. But it definitely gave Nietzsche his idea of nihilism. Again, it created new norms or terms to mark the difference of interplay, something that interested Freud greatly, and he used it in his theory of psychoanalysis. Now, constant new meanings are undecidables or unities of simulacrum. So if you understand deconstruction, one word will lead you to a multiple meaning, and constantly you'll be finding yourself in a position where you are unable to decide a meaning. You are in a situation of undecidables or the unities of simulacrum. Simulacrum is the symbolic meaning that you understand from culture. Right? So every word will have a different meaning in a different culture. So there would be a constant unities of simulacrum also. Every time you will have a new interpretation. Right? And same was picked up by Paul de Man and Hillis Miller, the famous Yale critics, and also by feminists like Spivak. Now understand, French feminist critics have, especially Showalter, they posed a theory called écriture feminine. They said that language is predominantly male. Again, logos, language is predominantly male. Now, we women have to find out something called écriture feminine, something called a female form of writing, or writing that comes from the female or feminine form of writing. Is it practically possible? Because the words will remain the same. We are ultimately going to choose from an already existing language certain words that could be classified as feminine language, which again will never have similar meanings as they had in the male oriented language or the oriented language. So how can you pick from the same pool of language and say that these words are feminine and these words are masculine? Practically not possible. And that is exactly the genesis of Derrida's theory, that it is impossible to fixate a meaning to a particular word. But man has received criticism as well. Terry Eagleton marks the concept as merely destructive. He says, if you are not reaching to a final meaning, then this is majorly destructive. However, we believe that it is not. It has given us an event to bring out or to challenge the Western metaphysics, to challenge the center of origin, to build a new discourse where everything could be understood with a new light of meaning. Now, before I end this, these are the list of books that I have used. I'd like to give you a few stances that Derrida took. He says that you could take up two broad paths. One, that would be systematically to question the founding concepts of history and philosophy and deconstitute them, create new concepts. Right? This would indeed be like taking a new step in philosophy. Outside philosophy. That is what he says. See, he was an outsider in his own community, and that is why he keeps saying that you need to find your meaning outside the text. Now, by outside, he did not mean moving out of the text. He said that beyond the text, right? There is a postponed meaning, and you need to travel, you need to move towards that journey and find out your meaning from outside or from the external point of view of the text. And second thing is that the second path that could be taken is the one that I said was taken by Levi-Strauss, that you could converse the old concepts, but also recognize their limits. And in this way you can have you can give them a truth and a value, and you will also be able to determine a new meaning to them. So the two interpretations of structure, sign and play that Derrida states gives one a dream of arriving at something where one tries to pass beyond man, his understanding, and humanism itself. So, yeah, the most important things that you have to understand that he does not lead you to a linguistic impasse, right? Understand that deconstruction is not meant to lead you to an impasse, to a roadblock, to a nihilistic understanding of no meaning. It is not an impasse. Rather, it is opening, it is leading you to a place which has a multi-bridge understanding of life. And number two, it is not an aporia. Aporia is, again, a French word of understanding an impasse, right? Something which does not lead to anything. See, people have criticized Derrida very much by saying that if there is no fixed meaning, where is one leading to? But understand that if there would be one fixed meaning to everything, would there be any evolution possible? Would we be able to proceed with life with fixated understandings? Practically not possible. So this is a brilliant postmodern concept to locate meaning in text, which allows us to tear apart arbitrary hierarchies and presuppositions. A favorite tool that has been offered to the 20th century philosophers, psychoanalysts, theorists, writers, researchers to understand life as complex, unstable, and impossible to determine, and absolutely not fixating any meaning to anything. And Derrida was very clear when he said that do not understand this as a critique, right? Not even as a philosophical method. This is his understanding of life that he delivered to the world, and people should understand it as his comprehension of the world. Thank you.